Stillness is often misunderstood as the absence of movement, as if it is simply the opposite of doing. But true stillness is not a lack of action. It is the presence of awareness. It is a state where your inner world becomes spacious enough for you to hear what has always been speaking beneath the noise. When life becomes loud, when emotions rise like tides, when the mind rushes ahead, trying to make sense of uncertainty, stillness becomes the anchor that brings everything back into focus. The world conditions many to believe that answers come through effort, through constant movement, through doing more. But clarity rarely arrives through force. It arrives when you make space. It arrives when you stop pushing. It arrives when you stop allowing your fears to dictate the pace of your decisions. Stillness is the moment you step out of the turbulence and into the quiet observation of what truly is. And in that quiet, the truth that was drowned beneath emotion begins to surface. When a person is emotionally overwhelmed, clarity becomes distorted. The mind creates scenarios, assumptions, storylines that run far ahead of reality. In this state, decisions are clouded, reactions are impulsive, and direction becomes unclear. Stillness interrupts this cycle. It pauses the emotional momentum long enough for you to separate what you feel from what is factual. Feelings are powerful, but they are not always accurate reflections of reality. Stillness allows you to examine them without becoming consumed by them. There is a profound intelligence within stillness. When you quiet the mind, you activate a deeper kind of perception. You begin to see the intentions behind actions, the patterns beneath behaviors, and the truths that were invisible when you were rushing. Many people move through life reacting, responding, overthinking, trying to fix or control situations without ever pausing long enough to understand them. Stillness gives you the ability to respond from wisdom, not from fear. In relationships, stillness reveals what connection truly is. When you are constantly chasing answers, reassurance, validation, or emotional certainty, you lose sight of the dynamics unfolding right in front of you. You may assume distance means rejection, silence means disinterest, hesitation means the absence of care. Yet these interpretations often come from an anxious mind rather than from truth. When you sit in stillness, when you stop seeking immediate resolution, you allow yourself to observe with a calmer heart. You begin to see that not every pause is a problem, not every silence is a threat, and not every delay is a sign of abandonment. Stillness helps you understand what someone's behavior is actually communicating, rather than reacting to what your insecurity imagines it means. Stillness also reveals your own needs. When you stop, even momentarily, you begin to notice what your mind has been avoiding. You may discover that your pursuit of others has been an attempt to avoid confronting your own emotions. You may realize that your desire for clarity from others has been masking your lack of clarity within yourself. You may recognize that some of your reactions were not responses to the present moment, but echoes of past experiences that remained unresolved. Stillness provides the space for these realizations to surface, and from that space, growth becomes possible. In stillness, you reconnect with your intuition, the quiet voice that becomes overwhelmed when emotions are loud. Intuition does not shout, it does not rush, it does not panic. It speaks gently, consistently, patiently. But you can only hear it when you slow down enough to listen. Clarity emerges when you allow that inner voice to guide you rather than letting fear, impatience, or uncertainty take the lead. Intuition is not emotional impulse, it is deeper wisdom that rises from a grounded place. Practicing stillness does not require hours of meditation or isolation from life. It can be as simple as pausing before reacting, breathing deeply before speaking, or stepping away from a situation to allow emotions to settle. These moments of intentional stillness carry tremendous power. They teach you to trust yourself. They lessen your emotional reactivity. They keep your dignity intact even in challenging moments. Stillness gives you the strength to choose your responses rather than being controlled by them. There is also a magnetic quality to stillness. When you are calm within yourself, others feel it. They sense the steadiness in your presence. They feel the peace in your energy. Stillness is not passive, it is powerful. It communicates that you are not controlled by external circumstances. It shows that you are not desperate for answers or dependent on immediate outcomes. This kind of grounded energy draws respect, it draws honesty, it draws alignment. You attract better when your inner world is calm because you make decisions from clarity rather than emotional distortion. Stillness teaches patience. not the waiting that feels like suffering, but the patience that arises from knowing that what is meant for you does not require force. When the mind is still, time no longer feels like a threat. You stop rushing towards certainty. You stop trying to make things happen before their natural unfolding. You begin to understand that clarity often reveals itself gradually, like a sunrise that does not appear all at once but grows brighter with every passing moment. Through stillness, you reclaim your inner space. You create room for perspective, for wisdom, for insight. And the more you practice this, the more you realize that clarity was never absent. It was simply hidden beneath the noise of urgency, fear, and emotional turbulence. Stillness clears that noise. It returns you to the simplicity of truth. It brings you back to yourself, to your breath, to your inner knowing. Where clarity is always waiting to be found, inner peace is often mistaken for softness, for passivity, for a kind of quiet existence that has no force behind it. But inner peace is not a withdrawal from life. It is not the absence of power. It is the source of it. It is the place where your strength is no longer reactive, no longer rooted in emotion, no longer dependent on the behavior of others. Inner peace is the strength that does not need to announce itself, defend itself, or prove itself. It simply exists, steady and unshaken, because it comes from a grounded relationship with your own inner world. When a person carries inner peace, they move differently. Their decisions are not rushed. Their emotions are not scattered. Their thoughts are not consumed by what others think or how situations appear in the moment. Inner peace creates a buffer between the noise of the world and the truth of your inner nature. It allows you to respond instead of react, to observe without absorbing, to feel without becoming overwhelmed. In this way, inner peace becomes a shield, not a hard one built from resistance, but a soft one built from awareness. Strength rooted in peace is different from strength rooted in tension. Many people equate strength with pushing through, with proving resilience through pain, with showing others that nothing can break them. But true strength does not come from resistance. It comes from alignment. It comes from knowing what truly matters and choosing not to be moved by what does not. When your inner world is calm, you do not waste energy fighting battles that are not yours. You do not become entangled in conflicts that drain your spirit. You choose wisely, and in that choice, your strength becomes more refined. Inner peace also removes the emotional urgency that often leads people to betray themselves. When you are unsettled inside, when your mind is restless, you may rush toward decisions just to escape discomfort. You may tolerate behaviors that do not honor you. You may chase situations that are chaotic simply because the chaos feels familiar. But when inner peace becomes your foundation, you do not negotiate your self-worth. You do not abandon your boundaries. You do not confuse intensity with intimacy. Peace gives you clarity, and clarity gives you strength. In relationships, inner peace transforms the way you engage with others. You no longer seek validation to feel secure. You no longer internalize someone else's distance as a reflection of your value. You no longer rely on external affirmation to calm your emotions. When you are at peace within yourself, you allow others the freedom to be who they are without losing yourself in their behavior. You can observe their actions, their patterns, their intentions, without taking any of it personally. This emotional neutrality is not coldness. It is strength. It is the ability to stay steady in your own energy, regardless of who comes closer or pulls away. Inner peace radiates through your presence. It changes the way you speak, the way you breathe, the way you hold yourself. People feel it before you explain it. They sense the calm in your eyes, the steadiness in your tone, the groundedness in your movements. Peace cannot be faked. It cannot be imitated. It is something that must be cultivated, nurtured, and protected. And once it is within you, it becomes your greatest form of strength because it remains even in the face of challenge. When life becomes unpredictable, when circumstances shift, when people change, inner peace gives you the ability to stay centered. You may bend, but you do not break. You may feel, but you do not drown. You may hurt, but you do not lose yourself. This resilience comes not from suppressing emotion, but from understanding it. When you are at peace, you recognize that emotions are waves. They rise, they fall, and they pass. You do not cling to them. You do not run from them. You allow them to move through you without losing your balance. Inner peace also radiates strength because it requires discipline. It requires you to choose what nourishes you instead of what drains you. It requires you to walk away from chaos even when chaos is tempting. It requires you to slow down when your mind wants to rush, to breathe when your emotions want to react, to trust when your fear wants control. These choices are not easy, but they are the choices that build unshakable inner resilience. There is a quiet confidence that emerges from inner peace. It is not arrogant. It is not loud. It is a knowing, a deep, grounded awareness of who you are and what you bring to any space. This confidence does not seek the spotlight. It does not seek approval. It does not shrink in the presence of uncertainty. It sits calmly within you, reminding you that you are whole regardless of external circumstances. When you stand in this inner equilibrium, others naturally adjust their behavior around you. They sense the standard you carry. They recognize the boundaries you uphold without needing to be told. Peace becomes a silent teacher. Inner peace also frees your energy. When your inner world is calm, your mind is not consumed by fear-based thinking. Your emotions are not tangled in unresolved wounds. Your spirit is not trapped in defensiveness. You have more vitality, more creativity, more intuition. You are able to see opportunities, solutions, and possibilities that were invisible when your mind was tense. Peace clears the fog that once clouded your perception. It opens your insight. It strengthens your discernment. As you deepen your relationship with inner peace, you begin to understand that strength is not something you show. It is something you carry. It is the quiet endurance in your heart, the calm certainty in your choices, the unwavering trust in your path. It is the ability to stand gently but firmly, without force, without fear, and without losing yourself in the intensity of the world. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of emotional strength. Many people hear the word and imagine coldness, withdrawal, or a shutting down of the heart. They confuse detachment with distance, assuming it requires pulling away from others or limiting one's capacity to feel. But true detachment has nothing to do with emotional isolation. It is not the act of closing doors, it is the art of keeping your internal door open without allowing external circumstances to storm into your inner space. Detachment is presence without possession, connection without dependency, love without self-abandonment. To understand detachment, you must first understand the difference between being zaz with someone and being zaz absorbed by someone. Many lose themselves in relationships because their emotional state becomes tied to every shift in another person's mood. A message left unread, a slight change in tone, a moment of silence. These small movements from another become triggers that shake the entire inner world. This is not connection, it is attachment rooted in fear. Detachment frees you from this emotional volatility, not by removing your care, but by grounding your care in inner stability rather than in external behaviors. When you practice detachment, you can still love deeply, feel fully, and engage authentically. But you no longer depend on someone's validation to feel secure. You no longer need constant reassurance to maintain emotional balance. You no longer turn every moment of uncertainty into a story about your worth. Detachment is the ability to stay centered even when things are unclear, to stay connected even when someone needs space, and to stay grounded even when emotions try to pull you into reactive patterns. Detachment is not the act of caring less, it is the act of caring from a place of self-respect. Many believe that to show love, they must sacrifice themselves, overextend their boundaries, tolerate inconsistency, or constantly adjust to someone else's emotional world. But this kind of engagement drains the spirit and distorts the relationship. When your sense of identity becomes intertwined with another's behavior, your emotional equilibrium becomes fragile. Detachment restores your inner sovereignty. It reminds you that you do not need to lose your center to stay connected to someone else. In relationships, detachment allows you to see other people more clearly. When you are overly attached, your perception becomes blurred by expectation, fear, and desire. You may overlook red flags, justify patterns that harm you, or interpret neutral behaviors as threats. You may take things personally that have nothing to do with you. Detachment clears the emotional fog. It gives you the ability to witness someone's actions for what they truly are, not for what you wish them to be or fear they might mean. This clarity makes your responses wiser, calmer, and more aligned with your well-being. Detachment also grants others the freedom to be themselves. When you release the urge to control outcomes, manage emotions, or predict the future, you allow space for authenticity. You give people permission to show you who they are without pressure, without expectations, without emotional demands that cloud the connection. This freedom strengthens relationships because it is rooted in trust rather than fear. It allows genuine closeness to grow, not by gripping tightly, but by holding gently. There is a profound inner peace that comes with detachment. It is the peace of knowing that you can handle uncertainty without spiraling, that you can witness change without fearing loss, that you can love without clinging. It is the peace of understanding that everything in life flows, shifts, and transforms, and that your strength lies not in trying to freeze life into place, but in meeting each moment with presence and openness. Detachment teaches you to trust the natural rhythm of connection, allowing closeness to arise organically rather than forcing it through effort or anxiety. Detachment also protects your emotional energy. When you are deeply attached, your mind constantly analyzes, questions, and interprets every subtle shift in another person. This creates mental exhaustion and emotional imbalance. Detachment puts a stop to this draining cycle. It teaches you that not everything requires a reaction. Not every silence is a message. Not every delay is a sign. It teaches you to pause, observe, and allow things to unfold before assuming meaning. This composure gives you the strength to maintain emotional health even when situations are uncertain. Practicing detachment does not mean withdrawing affection or becoming indifferent. It means being able to hold both connection and self-awareness simultaneously. It means you can be present with someone without merging your identity with theirs. It means you can experience love without losing self-trust. Detachment creates a relationship dynamic where love is rooted in freedom, not fear, in mutual respect, not emotional dependency, in authenticity, not insecurity. Detachment also deepens your relationship with yourself. When you stop clinging to external circumstances for emotional security, you begin to explore the places within you that need attention, healing, or understanding. You become more aware of your triggers, your patterns, your emotional habits. You learn to soothe your own anxiety instead of expecting others to do it for you. You learn to comfort your heart without seeking rescue. This self-reliance is not a rejection of intimacy. It is the foundation that allows intimacy to flourish without becoming a burden. As you embody detachment, you become more grounded, more discerning, and more emotionally resilient. You no longer chase clarity from others, you create it within yourself. You no longer cling to outcomes, you allow life to flow. You no longer fear loss, you trust your ability to handle whatever comes. This is the strength of detachment. It expands your capacity to love because it frees you from fear. It expands your capacity to connect because it frees you from dependency. It expands your capacity to live fully because it frees you from the need to control every unfolding moment. Self-value is not merely a concept. It is the foundation upon which all attraction is built. It shapes the energy you carry, the choices you make, the standards you uphold, and the relationships you allow into your life. Many try to increase their attractiveness by changing their appearance, altering their behavior, or adjusting themselves to fit someone else's expectations. But true attraction begins long before any external change. It begins in the silent internal space where you hold the truth of your own worth. What you believe about yourself becomes the signal you send into the world. And that signal determines not only who you attract, but also what you tolerate, what you pursue, and what you walk away from. When self-value is low, attraction becomes distorted. You may chase people who do not reciprocate your effort, believing their attention defines your worth. You may tolerate inconsistency, hoping your patience will convince someone to change. You may accept crumbs of affection and interpret them as signs of potential. Low self-value blinds you to what you deserve because it keeps you emotionally invested in earning what should naturally flow toward you. Attraction built on lack becomes a cycle of over-giving, over-explaining, and over-hoping, all while receiving very little in return. But when self-value rises, the entire equation shifts. You stop seeking validation from those who do not see you clearly. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who do not appreciate it. You stop chasing people who are undecided about you. Self-value turns your attention inward, reminding you that your worth is not negotiable, not conditional, and not dependent on someone else's behavior. You begin to understand that you attract what aligns with your beliefs, and when those beliefs are rooted in self-respect, you naturally draw people who reflect that respect back to you. Self-value determines attraction because it shapes your boundaries, quiet standards that communicate what is acceptable and what is not. A person with strong self-value does not tolerate emotional inconsistency, disrespect, or half-hearted effort. They do not justify red flags or rationalize patterns that wound their spirit. They do not remain in situations where they feel unseen or undervalued. Their boundaries are not walls. They are filters that allow only what is aligned with their well-being to enter. These boundaries speak more loudly than words ever could. They signal to others that this is someone who honors themselves, someone who cannot be manipulated by temporary affection or distracted by superficial charm. People are drawn to those who carry self-value because it communicates confidence without arrogance, strength without rigidity, softness without insecurity. It is an energy that says, I know who I am and I choose what aligns with me. This energy is magnetic because it reflects emotional maturity. It shows that you are not controlled by desperation, not driven by fear of loneliness, and not dependent on external approval. People feel safe around someone who values themselves because they sense stability, a grounded presence that does not demand cling or pressure but stands firm in authenticity. Self-value also determines the quality of your presence. When you believe in your own worth, you show up differently. You speak with more clarity. You listen with more discernment. You move with more intention. You do not need to perform, impress, or shape-shift to be liked. You allow yourself to be seen as you truly are. This authenticity is deeply attractive because it is rare. Many people have learned to hide behind masks, but someone rooted in self-value needs no mask. Their presence itself becomes an invitation. Not because they chase attention, but because their energy communicates inner stability. Self-value influences attraction by changing what you pursue. When you do not value yourself, you may pursue people who are emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or uninterested, mistaking the challenge for chemistry. You may chase intensity instead of intimacy, mistaking emotional spikes for genuine connection. But when self-value rises, you pursue alignment instead of attachment. You seek reciprocity instead of emotional thrill. You prioritize peace over unpredictability. This shift transforms your entire relational experience because you begin to choose from worth rather than from wounds. Another reason self-value determines attraction is because it shapes your emotional responses. When self-value is lacking, rejection feels like a reflection of your worth. But when self-value is strong, rejection becomes information, not identity. You do not internalize someone's behavior as a statement about you. You understand that everyone's actions are expressions of their own capacity, not judgments of your worthiness. This perspective protects your heart and prevents you from shrinking when someone does not choose you. Instead of chasing clarity from others, you create clarity within yourself by recognizing that your value remains constant regardless of how someone else perceives it. Self-value also enhances your intuition. When you know your worth, you trust your inner voice more deeply. You sense when a situation is misaligned, when someone's words do not match their actions, when your energy feels drained rather than nourished. Your intuition becomes sharper because your fear is quieter. You do not ignore your instincts to maintain connection. Instead, you allow your intuition to guide you toward relationships that match your emotional and spiritual integrity. Perhaps the most powerful effect of self-value on attraction is the shift from needing to be chosen to choosing. When your worth is rooted within yourself, you no longer wait passively for someone to recognize it. You become selective. You become discerning. You become intentional. You look not for someone who completes you, but for someone who complements the strength you already possess. You no longer cling to potential, you seek alignment. You no longer attach to uncertainty, you move toward reciprocity. You no longer fear being alone, you fear abandoning yourself. Through this shift, attraction becomes not something you chase, but something you naturally embody. Emotional regulation is often spoken about as a skill, a technique, or a form of self-control, but it is far more than that. For a woman, emotional regulation is a form of power, quiet, deep, and transformative. It is the strength that rises not from suppressing emotion, but from understanding it, guiding it, and mastering the internal world before engaging with the external one. When a woman learns to regulate her emotions, she becomes someone who cannot be easily shaken, manipulated, or pulled out of her center. Her feminine energy becomes anchored, and this grounding radiates through every aspect of her presence. Feminine power has always been intertwined with emotion. not because emotions make women weaker, but because emotions give women an intuitive sensitivity that is profoundly intelligent. However, when emotions are unregulated, they can become overwhelming, reactive, or unpredictable. This leads to decisions made from fear, insecurity, or urgency. Emotional regulation does not ask a woman to feel less, it asks her to feel deeper, with clarity rather than chaos. It allows her to remain soft yet steady, open yet protected, intuitive yet grounded. When emotional regulation is absent, a woman may find herself chasing reassurance, craving validation, or reacting impulsively when she feels uncertain. She may take things personally, feel threatened by distance, or interpret someone's behavior through the lens of past wounds. But once she begins to regulate her emotions, she moves differently. She pauses before reacting. She observes before interpreting. She breathes before responding. This pause is not weakness, it is mastery. It allows her to see the truth of a situation rather than the story her fear creates. Emotional regulation strengthens a woman's discernment. When emotions are balanced, she can sense the difference between intuition and anxiety, between genuine connection and emotional mirroring, between someone's true intentions and their temporary behavior. She does not get lost in the highs or consumed by the lows. She stands in the middle, the steady, powerful middle, where emotional wisdom lives. From this place, she becomes a woman who chooses rather than reacts, who leads her heart instead of being controlled by it. There is also a magnetic quality to emotional regulation. When a woman becomes emotionally steady, she naturally draws respect. People trust her presence because it is calm, grounded, and stable. She does not explode in anger or shrink in insecurity. She does not depend on others to soothe her or give her stability. She becomes her own emotional anchor. This independence does not push others away, it invites deeper connection because it creates a relationship dynamic free from pressure, emotional volatility, or dependency. In romantic relationships, emotional regulation is one of the greatest forms of feminine power. A woman who can regulate her emotions does not panic when someone pulls away. She does not chase answers out of fear. She does not respond from desperation when she feels uncertain. Instead, she returns to herself. She reconnects with her breath, her intuition, her grounded inner truth. This calmness creates an energy that is unmistakably attractive. It communicates confidence, self-trust, and emotional maturity. It shows that she is not driven by emotional chaos but by inner wisdom. Emotional regulation also protects a woman's vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is one of the most beautiful expressions of feminine energy. But vulnerability becomes dangerous when it is offered without boundaries or self-awareness. Regulation allows a woman to open her heart without losing her sense of safety. She can share her feelings without pouring herself out recklessly. She can express herself without demanding that others fix her emotions. She can be soft without being fragile. When a woman learns to regulate her emotions, she becomes more connected to her body. She notices when tension rises, when fear tightens her breath, when anger heats her chest, when sadness pulls her shoulders forward. She treats these sensations not as threats but as signals. This awareness transforms emotional reactivity into emotional intelligence. It teaches her to respond with presence rather than panic, clarity rather than confusion, intention rather than impulse. Emotional regulation also liberates her from old patterns. Many emotional reactions are not responses to the present, but echoes of past experiences. Without regulation, these echoes take control, causing her to overreact to small triggers or assume danger where there is none. But when she practices regulation, she uncovers the roots of these patterns. She brings compassion to the parts of herself that once lived in survival mode. She rewrites the emotional responses she once believed were automatic. This creates internal freedom, a freedom that strengthens her sense of self and deepens her emotional resilience. There is a quiet, undeniable strength in a woman who can sit with her emotions without acting on them immediately. She becomes someone who is not rushed by fear or overwhelmed by uncertainty. She becomes someone who moves with intention, who speaks with clarity, who chooses with wisdom. Her emotional world no longer controls her. She guides it with grace, and this guidance becomes the source of her feminine power. Emotional regulation gives a woman the ability to love without losing herself. She can care deeply without collapsing into neediness. She can open her heart without abandoning her boundaries. She can stay connected without sacrificing her inner peace. Her emotions remain rich, full, expressive, but they are anchored within her, not scattered by external forces. Through emotional regulation, a woman becomes a force of nature, not loud, not forceful, not aggressive, but steady, intuitive, graceful, and powerful in a way that cannot be shaken. Her emotional world becomes her strength, not her struggle. Her sensitivity becomes her wisdom, not her weakness. Her feminine energy becomes her foundation, not something she battles to control. Your energy is the silent language you carry into every space. It speaks before you say a word, before you take an action, before anyone has the chance to understand you through logic or conversation. It is the invisible force that communicates your level of self-respect, your boundaries, your expectations, and the way you see yourself. Many focus on what they say, what they do, or how they present themselves externally, but the truth is simple. Your energy sets the standard long before anything else does. People respond not to the surface, but to the vibration beneath the surface. Your energy signals what you will accept, what you will tolerate, and what you will never entertain. When your energy is grounded and strong, you do not have to announce your worth. You do not need to explain your boundaries. You do not have to ask others to treat you with respect. The standard is felt, not spoken. It becomes clear through the way you carry yourself, the quiet confidence in your tone, the steadiness in your reactions, and the clarity in your presence. This energy influences the behavior of those around you because it draws a line, an unspoken one, that says, "This is the level I stand at, and I will not lower myself to meet anything beneath it." But when your energy is unsteady, anxious, or rooted in self-doubt, the standard becomes unstable. Others can sense when you are unsure of yourself, when you crave approval, when you fear loss, when you tolerate things that go against your inner truth. This energy invites behaviors that match that internal uncertainty. It communicates that your boundaries are flexible, that your standards can be negotiated, and that your self-worth is dependent on external acceptance. Energy that is scattered attracts chaos. Energy that is needy attracts inconsistency. Energy that is fearful attracts people who take advantage of fear. Your energy sets the standard because it shows people how to engage with you. If your energy is calm and self-assured, people feel compelled to show up with respect. If your energy reflects desperation, people sense that they do not need to give their best. If your energy radiates alignment, people feel inspired to meet you at that level. The unspoken rules of connection are written not in words but in energy, energy that is shaped by your self-awareness, your emotional stability, and your inner grounding. Energetic standards begin with the way you treat yourself. If you speak kindly to yourself, if you honor your intuition, if you protect your peace, your energy becomes coherent. People feel that coherence. They sense the inner alignment you carry. And because you treat yourself with respect, you naturally expect the same from the world. But if you ignore your needs, silence your emotions, or stay in situations that undermine your worth, your energy becomes fragmented. And people sense that too. They feel the uncertainty, the conflict, the lack of self-honoring that lives beneath the surface. They respond to that energy, often unconsciously, by matching it. When your energy rises, the quality of your relationships rises with it. You no longer attract those who drain you emotionally. You no longer feel drawn to people who offer inconsistency instead of commitment. You no longer bond through pain, chaos, or wounded patterns. Instead, your energy becomes a filter, one that naturally repels what is misaligned and draws in what resonates with your higher state. This is not something you must force. It happens naturally because your inner state becomes the architecture of your outer experiences. Your energy sets the standard by guiding your emotional responses. When your energy is grounded, you do not react impulsively. You do not respond from insecurity. You do not try to prove yourself or convince anyone of your worth. You remain steady. You remain calm. You remain clear. This emotional steadiness communicates strength, even in silence. It shows that you are not controlled by fear or triggered by uncertainty. People adjust to this energy. They soften around it. They become more mindful in how they approach you. The respect you carry for yourself becomes the respect you receive from others. Your energy also speaks through your boundaries. A boundary is not something you enforce aggressively. It is something that is felt in the way you show up. When someone crosses a line, your energy does not panic, it withdraws quietly, it realigns, it creates distance without drama. This kind of boundary conveys a profound message. I will not entertain anything that costs my peace. When your energy communicates this message, people learn quickly how to treat you. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it non-negotiable. In relationships, your energy sets the tone for how deeply someone invests. If your energy reflects self-worth, someone must rise to meet that worth. If your energy reflects self-neglect, someone may take advantage of that opening. This is why inner work is essential. You attract not what you want, but what you energetically align with. The standards you wish to uphold must be mirrored in the energy you embody. Your energy determines the pace of your life. When your energy is frantic, life becomes chaotic. When your energy is fearful, life feels unpredictable. But when your energy is calm, intentional, and aligned, life moves with clarity. Opportunities arise. Alignment becomes natural. Relationships feel lighter, richer, deeper. Your energy guides not only how others treat you, but how the entire world responds to you. Your energy sets the standard because it is your most honest language. It is the truth beneath your words, the essence beneath your actions, and the quiet signal that shapes your entire experience. When your energy becomes rooted in self-respect, emotional grounding, and inner clarity, everything in your life begins to align with the standard you set through the power of your presence.